So, I found out something very interesting the other day. Apparently, universities are teaching language students Shakespeare. I was discussing this with the Chinese student, and so it made me think, hey, that's quite a factor. So this is at okay. There's a Queensland University, Sydney University has a program as well. There's Australian Catholic University where they check close reading and language skills. So there's a few Adelaide, one in Canberra. So it made me think, like, why do universities make ESL students study Shakespeare? Because the language of Shakespeare it's very different to modern English. So it's very, very confusing for people. So it made me think about why we would do this. Okay. So what I wanted to do today was tell you that you may need to know some Shakespeare in order to do well in exams, assignments, and even understand English classes more effectively, which is good, or know it better. And we'll talk about how reading is actually going to increase your grades. And I mean, basically, it'll help you do better if you're doing an assignment, but also it'll help you write better because you'll understand how language works in a more interesting way. Plus, you get some cool stories out of it. I like the stories. I do it for the stories. So you're going to focus on how universities use his language to teach advanced English skills, which they definitely do. And we're going to look at how he uses words and how that can improve. I guess, if you're a native, how it can improve your writing. And if you're not a native, how that can, increase your comprehension and understanding. Because, look, ultimately, Shakespeare, if you're in an English speaking country, it is a part of the culture. So it helps to know where it came from. I mean, today I saw a video about Richard III, and they uncovered his bones, and then they found out it changed a big historical thing that we didn't know about him because of the DNA that they found. And like, that little detail is very interesting. So really, knowing the stuff does connect you to people from all over the world, you know? So fundamentally, what we're going to learn today is we're going to figure out why Shakespeare's words are difficult. You're going to figure out ways to turn this difficult language into just everyday words that you'll use, easier language that you can actually understand. Because that's ultimately what you'd like to do, I'm sure. Give me a moment. Let me just move stuff around. Always getting distracted. Okay, so I mean, ultimately, the point is to make you more confident in what you're writing and what you're saying. That's the key detail. I mean, if I'm speaking in Dutch, I have to do Dutch because Duolingo doesn't have Afrikaans. I'm not as confident speaking in that language because I think in English, which means if I do travel to the Netherlands, I would probably be practicing thinking in the language to be able to understand it faster, which means I have to understand, certain quirks about the language. Okay. So let's keep it very simple. I don't want to do a huge one today, but essentially, even simple words that you think are very, very normal. Say if you're saying you, your, that sounds simple. That's okay. You, your. But if I say thine, it's like or thy phone is effective and dusty. So thou, you, thy, yours, and thine. I can't even remember what that one was. But see what I mean? It's different language that you really want to get to know and go, well, because you get lost with words. With vocabulary, you always want to keep going, even if you're like, oh, what's that mean? Look at the context around in the sentence. Because the thing is, Shakespeare's grammar was actually, it's different, which it makes it very confusing for people. Today, you'll get in big trouble if you say more better. But if you go back to some of the original work, you will see that that was a way that people would speak back then. So grammar does change, vocabulary does change, even spelling changes. If you've ever read American spelling, you'll see that actually you probably don't read the original British spelling. So spelling does change with time as well, which is very traumatic for some of us. And ultimately, the thing to think about as well is the examples they give. So if you use a metaphor, you know, it's that old English, it's going to be different to modern English. Even, like the glass is half full. We know it means, or if you understand English, the glass half full means, be positive. But see how even if you're new to the language, that might be like, oh, so that's what that means. So then you have to think, he's using words that are completely different, a grammatical structure that's completely different, plus he's using metaphors like that we would not even say anymore because it's over 400 years old. So things do change in language. So that's I wanted to give you guys a few examples on this one. Time doing all right. Okay, good. So we know the famous line, to be or not to be, that is the question. So that's from a play called Hamlet. So Hamlet, let me give you a bit of a rundown of Hamlet so that you can quickly pick out what it is. All right, so in short language, TLDR doesn't mean doctor. It means too long, didn't read. So Hamlet sees his dead father's ghost, pretends to go crazy with revenge. Then he actually goes crazy with revenge, and everyone dies. That's the story of Hamlet in a nutshell. But ultimately, there's a lot more to it. And how interesting. Okay, anyway, I won't go on that tangent. So, you can read through this summary of it, or you could read the whole play, or even better, you could watch the play or in film form. It's always good to have an idea. So, basically, let's just go with that, to be. So when it says to be, that doesn't mean anything other than to exist or to live. Like, it's a very, very simple term if you understand the term or why it's being used. But it can be like, to be. Very confusing if it's the first time you see it and you don't know the context. So essentially, he's asking the question of, like, to exist is we have to decide, it's like, our lifetimes. And I don't want to go too much into what that really does mean. But it's commenting on that factor, and it's so cool with that. Having said that, I'm kind of I'm apprehensive to do the stressful ones because I want to have a fun one. What will people? Because I was researching what what ESL students tend to prefer for Shakespeare, and usually I think they like the comedies. But look, I'm a bit of a hopeless romantic, so let's think about Romeo and Juliet instead as an example. So here's another quote. They say, "Parting is such sweet sorrow." Oh, doesn't that sound so sad? So that's showing when you say goodbye to friends and family, you're sad, but it's beautiful because it shows the connection between the people. You can be sad and happy at the same time. And when you're leaving, say you're going on a holiday, you can feel sad and happy at the same time, which is really the cool thing about it. So I think, yeah, as far as I guess I'm specifying for Chinese students because that's probably the vast majority of the students who I teach. And yeah, ultimately, let's do some fun ones that they've said that they like. So let me have a look if I can find a quote from a fun. Oh, there's a good one. Okay. As you like it, let me talk to you about what that one's about. That one. Okay. All right. So too long, didn't read. So there's all these brothers who hate each other for some reason, and then a girl, Rosalind, she dressed up as a boy and convinces her crush, so the boy who she's interested in, to hit on her while she's a boy. To hit on her means to show romantic interest in her. So everyone is married by a Greek god. Okay, that's another detail, but what a comment. So here's a fun fact about Shakespeare's plays. All of the plays were played by men or younger men. I think boys for the girl parts because they sometimes had higher voices. So they didn't have to seem as manly. So this is making some sort of a political commentary because at the time, if you had two men who were romantically involved, that was very illegal in England in the 1590s and 1600s. So making a comment on that would have been very interesting. But here you've got a safe comment because it's a girl who dresses as a boy. Imagine if it went the other way. So let's have a look at what that one is. I might actually write them in here. Okay. So it is here. Let me find my notes. Okay. Where is it? Oh, yeah. All the words are stage. There. You got it? So all the world's a stage. And I think it's and everyone is yeah, okay. Actually, give me the full quote. For all the world's a stage. Because it's you and I merely players. That's the bit I was thinking about. Okay. All the world's a stage. Yes, we're not. So monologue means one person is saying a very, very long thing about something. Okay. So all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. In modern English, merely players means they're only actors. Like an actor on a movie set, it's saying the whole world is the movie set. And we're all acting our parts in our movie set. So here, actually, let me show you the whole thing because it's quite good. Okay. They have the exits and the entrances. So let's simplify this one. Exit, die. Entrance, born. One man, sexist. They're just talking about men. How could they? So one man or woman or whoever they are in his or her time plays many parts. His acts being 7 ages. At first, the infant, mewling. So mewling, I forget what that word means. I won't even look it up. But and puking, so puking is vomiting. So mewling is like, and in the nurse's arms. How cute, a baby. Then the whining schoolboy with his satchel. What the hell is a satchel? A satchel is a thing to the side, like a bag. So you see what I mean? You can kind of guess what the meaning of the word is just from saying what the sentence is saying. And shiny morning face, creeping like snail. So he's morning face, I would say he doesn't have a very big beard because he has a morning face in the morning, right? He doesn't want to go to school, and then he's yes, like a furnace. So let's think of a furnace. A furnace going heating up with a sad song, a ballad. So see what I mean? Like it's really interesting language in the way that it works. Yeah, I mean, okay. So made to his mistress's eyebrow. So then he's basically, it's about like a young love. But then he becomes a soldier or a worker, and then he gets a beard. Okay, all right. So see what I mean? So it's and then he cares about his reputation as he gets older, right? So even in the cannon's mouth, and then the justice. So even in the cannon's mouth, that's a metaphor because around about that time they had this thing called gunpowder. I don't know if you've heard of it, but gunpowder is used to you put it inside a little bullet, and that's what makes it go. So way back then, they didn't have very good bullets. They had these big cannons, and they would put the gunpowder at the start, and they put the cannon on the end of it at the top of the gunpowder. Then you light the fuse, and then boom, shoots the cannonball, and then it did things and broke things. So even in the cannon's mouth, this person cares about his reputation. What a statement that you potentially cannot even get if you don't have an appreciation for the words and the language. So then he gets a little bit bigger belly around belly. So see what I mean? Like it's going through his whole life. And right to the end, I won't go through the whole thing because it's quite long. Now, let's get back to my other point. Okay, why do universities make yourself students study Shakespeare? So hopefully that's helping. But see what I mean? That's a comedy play. That's a comedy play, and like it's still it gives you something very serious about life and a very good understanding about life and the world in it. Which is kind of cool. So let's do a little bit of a recap of that one. So, I mean, ultimately, I want to. Hopefully, I showed you that Shakespeare. It really does. It matters for. I mean, exams when you're at school. Obviously, it matters even when you're in the workplace because if you understand how the world works and that we're all players or actors in the world, you then understand. I need to act well or present well in a particular situation, which is going to give you a clearer appreciation for culture and why we should learn it and figure things out. Because I mean, we're living in a very interesting time when so many cultures are coming together because there's so much diversity. Very different to how things were in history because we didn't have the internet. We don't really appreciate how much the world changed since the internet or books in the internet. Okay, so hopefully I helped you be able to find difficult words and understand grammar and how you can break down difficult things to understand things better. So I'm interested to find out from you, what would you say is the most confusing, say Shakespeare word or phrase for you? Like, comment it, tell me if it's difficult. And how do you feel about studying Shakespeare in your textbooks? Because I have found it's like quite a few of my Chinese students are familiar with Shakespeare. I was like, wow, that's so cool because it is old Chinese literature. So it's just interesting showing it's like, wow, it's having an appreciation for literature and ideas. So I'm interested to find out, how do you feel when you see it? Does it make you go, oh, this is pointless? Or are you finding it's interesting? And, will you look in and try and figure out ways to do these things to make it simpler? Will you translate the language into simpler language to then retranslate to figure out? Will you do that? Because yeah, I must say, like it's so for me, I've seen it the students who really grab onto these things, it helps them so much. And I mean, look, ultimately, you know, even like say if you're a Chinese university student, you may be required to read Shakespeare in English courses if you're trying to increase your level, to get to the C2 level to be able to attend a regular course, which means you're it's in the academic English subject. So that can feel really difficult because already you need to improve your vocabulary while you're getting your pronunciation better, which is difficult to say the least, because we don't make pronunciation errors on purpose, but you may not know, like, that you're making an error when you say something. So, and ultimately, if you don't understand what something is saying, you can't write an essay well. The feedback that I get from my students very often is that they say us talking about the ideas and us understanding the ideas helped us write our short. We're at the yeah for these students, they're writing mini essays. So I mean, even if they're writing 150 to 300 words, that can be a like a shorter essay. But them talking about it helped them understand and write it better, and if that's what helps people improve and get better with that, think how much easier simple things can be, simple tasks. So I guess it's not so bad, learning a little bit of Shakespeare to not only increase our academic performance, but I think that would make us better in the workplace as well. So I guess yeah. So because specifically, I think it is difficult for people who speak Mandarin, because I think that the grammar, the vocabulary, pronunciation is so different in the different language that it takes more effort. So if you are a Chinese learner, you have to work so much harder just to understand something in the new language. And so many people are speaking English, so you kind of like have to learn it to be able to be competitive. So ultimately, I'm trying to help you, yeah, understand these things with a little bit more confidence instead of being just staying quiet and being afraid to speak. Because if you speak, even if you speak badly, you make grammatical mistakes or grammar mistakes. If you do that, you will improve significantly. Yeah, significantly means a whole lot. If you not sure your English level, if you're listening to this, and we might even have some natives. So for the natives, like, think about if you're learning a different language, how difficult it is to even, like, when I look at a Greek book, I'm like, huh, like my brain wants to switch off because it all of the words just seem like hieroglyphs. Hieroglyph is, the ancient Egyptian pictures that were language. So to me, it looks like that when I'm looking at like a wall of text in Greek. But if you give me 5 words in Greek, I'll say, okay, I kind of know. I might know 3 words, and I'll identify and figure it out. So the trick is, well, what I've learned when I'm studying it is I'll slow down and I'll look at the smaller sections and I'll go, okay. So I read a little bit slower, but I'll read these sections and I'll skip words that if I don't know it, and I'll just skip it and go, okay, next sentence, to try and get the overall meaning of whatever I'm reading. So I don't get stuck up on certain things. Just keep going, and you'll find that helps you when you're reading in a new language. Okay, Let's have a think. What else should I explain to you guys? I think that's basically everything I wanted to talk about. I mean, it's a little bit of a short one today. Maybe to use some fun ones because I wanted to give you guys a few examples of some funny stories. Okay, I'll give you a few more examples before I go because I kind of I like literature, whether it's ancient literature, medium literature. It's I find that it helps me understand cultures all over the world because it's we're all saying the same thing in different languages. We'll use different words to say very similar things. So it's interesting in that sense. Okay, so as you can see, people from Shakespeare's time were a little bit concerned about boys dressing as girls. We might have a worry about that today, but it's a different problem. But also, actually, what was the thing? It's because homosexuality was illegal in Shakespeare's time. Therefore, what a statement to make a play like that. Yeah, because he's creating that play for the Queen. Imagine making a play or a film at that level, um, at a time when it's completely illegal for people to be behaving in that way. So it shows you, like, people can make statements in any context. Like, people always say, like, it's like, oh, well, this country does that, or this country does that. That's why they can't speak. You're like, yeah, but people find a way. Clever people always find a way to succeed in every area that they go into, you know? Because I'm quite amazed with just the growth in some of my Chinese students, how quickly they can learn things and start writing and speaking and like they'll make so many errors, and then those errors are actually what make them do well. But let's have a look. Let me find a nice example. Let's see. Uh, did I mention As You Like It? I think I did. Yes. Okay. Let's see. All right. So I do desire we may be better strangers. Okay. I wonder what that means. I do desire we may be better strangers. I'll give you that quote. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna put that in quotation marks. Okay. Okay. Now I'm gonna show you what you should do in a prompt. So here I've said, what is meant by the quote, I do desire we may be better strangers. Okay. So provide sources. Remember to ask your AI for sources. Okay. Still thinking. This is why I like Perplexity, because CS it gives you all the sources and it uses quite a few sources. So if you're thinking, oh, which AI should I use for academic learning? I've got to hand it to Perplexity. From what I've seen, it tends to give better academic sources, worse responses as far as just if you want to copy the text directly. Perplexity is terrible for that one because it reads not quite how it, yeah, which you shouldn't be doing that anyway. But it uses sources very well, which means your understanding is going to grow the most, which is good. Okay, so I do All right, okay, so yes, Orlando's saying what? Oh, it's a witty insult. Yeah, we get that. Anyway, just let me simplify it. Let me simplify it. Okay, so yeah, it's a polite way of saying I prefer if we hardly knew each other at all. I wish we didn't really talk to each other. Like, see what I mean? That's such a It sounds fancy, but it's just like, it would be so much better if we were not really friends. It's like, it's like, yeah, I'm not really that interested in talking to you. It's that sort of a feeling. So you can see it's like these people are writing hundreds of years ago or acting this out hundreds of years ago. It's the same feeling that's being presented. The unfortunate thing is that, yeah, we don't, well, I guess, recognize it. Ah, but yeah, so hopefully that was useful, and and you, yeah, learn something, whether you were a local or if you were a Chinese student who does have an appreciation. Because I'd be very interested if you are, say, I guess, an English second language person or even a Chinese student who had to study Shakespeare or is thinking of studying it. Tell me. It's like, what's the line that confused you the most? And, tell me if you want me to explain that one. And I mean, I could do a whole thing on one quote, and you'd be amazed at how much we can pull out of it. So yeah, feel free to throw things. I'll happily explain these things and talk about them because I love literature and I like history. So it's always fun to talk about. Yeah, I was very happy to find that Richard III YouTube. I think, who was it about? I'll look it up on here so that you can have a look. I'll quote it for you guys because it was such an interesting thing because I've obviously been very familiar with Richard III because I had to study at school and I've taught it as an adult as well. So Richard III DNA. Let's have a look. Okay. Okay, so there we go. So they found his DNA, which means that it caused a few questions about, well, who was he? Who were the people after him? Who were the people before him? What was going on? It's very, very interesting detail, and like, what a cool historical detail that you can research if you like researching things. So hopefully you guys like that one. I wanted to go a little bit longer, but I'm very torn. I don't know if I should bore you for hours or whether these shorter ones are better. So please let me know that as well. And if you did forget to like, subscribe, and comment on what difficulties you could have and what you'd like to learn about next, please do leave a comment and let me know if this helped. So have a good rest of your day or evening, whichever one it is, and I'll see you soonerish. Soonerish? Is that a word? I gotta look it up before I go. Is soonerish a word? Okay. It's not a standard word, but it's used informally. Okay, it's casual, so it doesn't mean it's not a real word. Did you know that, okay. How many words I'll leave you this one, did Shakespeare invent? I bet it's a few. Oh, the first recorded words. Okay, so they say 1700 invented, or it could be 500. One of the two. So, but the thing is, even if it's just 500 words, like that's 500 used to the English language, like bed, room, bed, room. The room with the bed in one word. Useful. So I'll leave you with that note. Have a good one, and we'll talk soon. Bye. End stream. Bye.